for all the work towards the boosters.
That's right. There's a little bit of a delay.
It's the YouTube.
It's very,
There it is.
I'm like, what is it doing? Oh, it's,
This is hit mute. Yep.
Not yet. 1 minute. No, summer diploma. All right.
Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't.
And Jeff made it back from Europe,
We think.
or at least his Zoom account.
He
made it
might
back
be in
from-
San Diego still. or-
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to let you see me after a 10-hour flight here, but here's my shining face.
All right, it's 6 o'clock then, so we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order, whether you be here or home. And we will begin it like we always do with our land acknowledgement statement. The Chinookan peoples, known as the Clackamas and Cascades, are the indigenous people of the land now inhabited by the city of Wood Village and other areas of the Columbia River. The village of Nechakli was located near today's Blue Lake Park. Ancestral life of these people included a seasonal round of resource gathering and stewardship from the Wapato fields and fishing areas of the Columbia River to the cedar and huckleberry gathering areas of the High Cascades. Introduced disease from early settlers dramatically reduced the number of these people. They signed the Willamette Valley Treaty of 1855 with the United States government and were forcibly removed to the Grand Ronde Indian Reservation. We thank the descendants of these tribes for being the original stewards and protectors of these lands since time immemorial. We also acknowledge the systemic policies of genocide, relocation, and assimilation that still impact many Indigenous Native American families today. We are honored by the collective work of the many Native nations, leaders, and families who are demonstrating resilience, resistance, revitalization, healing, and creativity. And we are honored to be guests upon these lands. Now have the Pledge of Allegiance. Flag is behind us there. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
With liberty and justice for all.
And now we'll open the floor for citizen comment on non-agenda items.
Well, Mayor, I was expecting one person to show up this evening, and that was Rabbi Dice, who is hosting a menorah lighting next Monday at 5:30 in our Civic Center. He's also then putting on the one that's in Gresham the Sunday evening, and then in City of Sandy the following Tuesday. So he said he's planning on being here to talk with you all. Not here, so I just wanted to pass along that message.
Okay, thank you. All right, then we'll close the floor for citizen comment, and we will go to our service acknowledgement. Little mystery there on the agenda. And actually, before we get into that service acknowledgement, there's one other service acknowledgement to make, and that's to now Captain Ryan Hackala, who, as Lieutenant Hackala, was our Wood Village chief. But now that he's been promoted to captain and is in charge of the training division, we will have Lieutenant Chubinashu, who I'm sure will do a wonderful job. But we would be remiss, Captain Hackala, if we didn't thank you for all the work that you did on our behalf and that you continue to, the things you continue to help us with as well.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. And as you can see from the monitors, it is unfortunately time for us to say goodbye to Council President Nissen. This is his last city council meeting. You might have noticed on the ballot that we had a seat that was open and his name was conspicuously absent. But he has served the city for quite a long time. 7 years on the Planning Commission. And where he started, I believe, let's see here, 2007. Yes, and then since 2015 on the council. So 15 remarkable years of service to the city. Just to give you an idea of things that occurred while Council President Nissen was a councilor or the council president. Or his time as on the Planning Commission as well. He worked for 3 different city managers. In his time, we undertook a complete review and overhaul of the town center. He was part of the city hall sale and redevelopment. He participated in the fire service user study, and he served on the 4 City Fire User Board for a number of years as well. And maybe most importantly, he was instrumental in setting up the field space for our Easter egg hunt. And now we have a new measurement that it's set up by called Nissen Paces. He certainly served the community well. And just like everybody to offer up a round of applause first off for his service. Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you, Mayor.
And then we have 3 councilors online tonight, Councilor Minor, Councilor Rios Campos, and Councilor Mend. Start maybe with Councilor Minor, if you would like to offer up any parting comments or parting shots, as the case may be.
Well, I may weave in and out of either one of those, but Councilor Nissen, I'll tell you, it's been a pleasure serving with you. I didn't know you well before we got on there, but certainly I soon recognized your experience and how you shared that with the council in a way that we all could hear it. Certainly your advice on safety issues related to fire, life safety, but also just your general wisdom as we work through conversations. You did that with grace a lot of times when certainly you may have had some strong opinions. You shared those, but you did it with in a way in which other people could also share theirs. So Councilor Nissen, I'll see you driving around in your big old monster truck. And we'll enjoy if we can occasionally stop and have a cup of coffee someplace, or maybe a breakfast and talk over things. So Bruce, nice serving with you. You deserve some time now, some free time in your life, and best of luck to you.
Thank you very much.
And Councilor Rios Campos.
It's been a pleasure serving with you. Again, I didn't really know you until I got into my role as recreation manager, but quickly realized your passion for the city you live in, the residents here, and their well-being. So really appreciate that, your guidance and just everything you've done for the city.
Councilor Mann.
Bruce. Oh, I wish I could be there and shake your hand. I mean, you definitely don't want to touch my hands right now, but I'm really glad that I got a chance to serve with you and just to get to know you a little bit. I had a great time working with you at the Pumpkin Fest. My brain's not working, the pumpkin drive. And that's so much service to our community, and it's so impactful. And yes, I don't know you well, but I know one thing we share is like pride in our community. I know that, and yeah, just love for our community. So thank you. And I hope to see you around. Is there going to be a party or something? Doing council beers? What?
Yeah.
Council beer sounds
That
good.
could be arranged. Yeah.
Okay.
I
Yes.
like beer.
All right. I vote yes.
All right. Well, and Bruce, unlike the rest of the council, I did have an opportunity to serve with you before either one of us was on the city council, when I joined the planning commission in 2009. And, you know, I mean, in those 2 years, you always made it clear that, that Tim Clark and I were right when we started, pushing you to run for city council. And, I'm so glad that you did. I mean, your service is pragmatic, it's level-headed, and it's kind. And we're really going to miss you. You know, it's a mystery who we might have to replace you right now, but whomever they are, they have big shoes to fill. So thank you.
Well, I guess now it's my turn.
Yep.
Thank you all. All four of you, it's been a pleasure to serve, and to other previous council members as well as staff. There's been some tough decisions, but overall I've enjoyed all of it. One thing I like to pride us in is we may not agree at a meeting tonight, but I see any council member or staff tomorrow at the store, and we're going to stop and say hi, shake hands. We take care of business. We keep business and personal separate. We all have pride in our city and want to do the best we can for our citizens, but don't take that personally between us. And I will miss that, but I will still be around for the activities and events that our city takes great pride in. And just for the record, I did see the number of write-in votes, and Vladimir Putin got just as many write-in votes as I did in the last election. But a big thank you to everyone.
You know, hopefully that was a admirer of a particular hairstyle and not a particular political ideology. And then staff, any words for Council President Nissen?
Yeah, the council has spoken. We're going to blow out your candle now, and the deputies will escort you out of the building. No, I mean, I knew you from before I was even working with the city, as volunteered in events and things. And I think you embody what it means to be a good counselor, in that you're a person of the community with a passion for the community, to enrich the community, but not enrich yourself. You know, the work that you've done benefits everybody. And, you know, often we get questions of, oh, I don't know if I'm qualified, or I don't know if I'm doing a good job on council. And it's just really having that passion for the community, which has already been said time and time again this evening. And you have that. And I'm sure you'll continue to have that regardless of any official position you have or don't have. And just a word on your plaque, the plaque people we used to go through, they retired and they didn't pick a replacement. And so since you didn't pick a replacement either, I felt it was suiting that your plaque's delayed.
But it's on the way.
Staffing shortages, supply chain
issues.
Emmeline was gone.
That's right. Yeah, it's still fresh enough, that departure. We can blame him. All right, then. Thank you. Next, we'll have our public safety report with Sergeant Grickman.
Hello, Mr. Mayor, City Council. Thank you for having me. Looks like there was 137 dispatch calls for service in the city in the month of November, and 150 self-initiated calls. Both of those are right at the average for the city for the last year. 24 of those calls for service were considered emergency calls, while the rest were non-emergency. And again, pretty much right on par for the year. Looking through the specific types of calls, they were pretty much on par. Their traffic stops were up from the prior month, which is nice to see, and just falling just a hair below what the monthly average normally is. It looks like 20 traffic accidents were reported within the city of Wood Village, and I don't have a number as to what the average is on a monthly basis, but that seems a little high.
That's high.
Yeah, it's not normally that high. So I'm not sure what the cause would that be. I was kind of looking at the different locations, and they kind of seem to be all over the city. So it could be maybe inclement weather, things getting, it's getting darker earlier, things like that, but I'm not sure what the exact cause would be. There were 4 vehicles reported stolen within the city. Or I'm sorry, there was only 3. The average is 4, so it came up just a little bit less than the monthly average. And I looked through the call log. There was no calls that jumped out at me as anything significant to go over. If there's any calls that jumped out at you, I'd be more than happy to try and clarify any questions you might have. But also, I know last time you asked me for some specific Hope Team type statistics. I could tell you in the month of November, we had 96 client contacts. We got 3 people into what would be considered like short-term shelter housing and 1 person into long-term transitional housing. And I know we've been working with the city to try and mitigate some of the camping issues going on at 238 and Sandy or along Sandy Boulevard, just trying to alleviate some of those issues that are the businesses are experiencing. Do you have any questions for me?
Did the joint office stick with the limitations and the new limitations and the resources that are available, or was any of our pleading fruitful?
So during the inclement weather we had, when it dropped below freezing, they opened up the warehouse and provided a little bit more, but it's still cut back substantially from what it was last year.
Council President Nissen, you have any questions or comments?
I have no questions. Thanks, Sergeant.
Councilor Minor, any questions or comments for Sergeant Gerkman?
No, thank you for the presentation.
And Councilor Rios Campos?
No questions. Thank you.
Councilor Amend?
No questions. Thanks.
You mentioned the motorhomes and the contact that you've had down there recently. And there was a little talk before we started about some of the costs related to having a motorhome towed.
Yes.
Would you mind reflecting on that discussion and just give the folks that are listening an idea of what that cost is?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have found that those costs range anywhere from like $4,000 to $5,000, depending on the size of the RV, because it's pretty substantial. It covers the tow fee, the storage fee, and the potential destruction fee, which is where most of the money ends up. Thankfully, in talks with the people down there just today, most of them seem like they're willing to move around, maybe go, try and help them find another place where they could go, a safe place to be. Some of them might be incapable of moving at this time due to mechanical issues, but we're kind of working on getting them in touch with the right resources to get their RVs and trailers back up and moving.
And these motorhomes that are here on Sandy now, notwithstanding, does that $4,000 to $5,000 cost include any sort of cleanup that might have to occur because of vehicle fluids leaking?
That would just be the tow.
Just be the tow.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's and how often would you say there's environmental issues after?
Usually when we are towing an RV, it's because of environmental issues. A lot of oil's leaking onto the ground. They will try and clean them up with cat litter or something like that. Sometimes the fire department's helped us out in the past, but ultimately, I mean, if oil's been leaking for several days or even weeks, it's, gotten down into the draining system.
And that just to bring some context to why this is getting brought up, because, certainly as a city, as a council, it's been, and, the Hope Team lead with compassion, lead with understanding. And so why this is being brought up now is we assume this may happen as Sandy Boulevard got more, I'll call it attractive as a place to kind of try to be low impact at some point. The sheer volume it's no longer low impact. And so there's some difficulties with the semi traffic that goes through there getting in and out safely. And what we don't want is, drivers injured or people sleeping, injured, as there could be a collision. And then, as the sergeant said, there's some environmental concerns with some of the units and trying to just get voluntary compliance first, and we can help with cleanup and what that looks like secondary. And we did meet with County Roads this afternoon about what it could look like to do some engineered controls to kind of limit return guests and visitors to that particular area. And it's something we've been working with the joint office on I think since we connect with the joint office, that there needs to be a place for people that call an RV or a trailer or their vehicle home. Because to them, that's better than a pod or hotel room or some kind of shelter bed in a commingled situation. That's home, and there's no place for them to put their home. And so working with our partners, trying to find, there's models kind of, I'll call it around the region, but not in the region, that are successful in essentially having an RV park for older RVs that the other parks don't take or qualify for. Then ideally would have some wraparound supportive services, whether it's job training, job follow-up, or other kind of counseling services. That's the ideal. And unfortunately, it looks like that's not on the horizon, but we're still pushing for something.
And then it just occurred to me, despite the fact that I've been listening to these reports for 11 years, are traffic stops included in the total number of uninitiated or
The self-initiated, yes,
Yeah.
that would
Okay.
be included.
All right. And then something that I've really respected about you guys in the past is that if you read the studies on different agencies and citations that they write, you guys are only about 14% of your stops. And so you kind of view traffic stops more as educational. Is that
Yeah.
still the plan? Good.
Yeah, I believe that's what most people are predominantly doing.
Good. Because, I think a lot of times it's older cars and poor people that get stopped, and,
Mhm.
the last thing they need is mounting debt due to unpaid
Yeah.
traffic, but at least they know somebody's watching.
Yeah, absolutely. Mhm.
Yeah,
Ten when I was chief.
yeah. Well, we appreciate that, whether I got the number right or not. I know it's low.
Yeah.
And which is really good. And so thank you very much.
Thank
Sergeant
you.
Gerken.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Captain. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
So now we have a review of the bills paid. Does anybody have any questions or comments about the bills that are on the top sheet or that were in the staff report? Okay, hearing none, then I will go to the consent calendar. Does anybody have any questions, comments, anything they would like to discuss on the consent calendar?
There is one thing I'd like to pull out of consent, if I may, Mayor, and that is on the turkey drive.
Sure.
So do you want to do the rest of the consent, then we can hit turkey drive?
Yeah, we'll, so we're going to pull turkey drive off of consent. And so I would entertain a motion to approve the amended consent calendar.
I just, if anybody could share how the tree lighting went, I wasn't here, and just it being the first time at the new city hall, I think it'd be good to just share a little bit about how that experience went.
Sure. Greg, you want to throw that in with the turkey drive?
Yeah, why not?
All right. So we'll take both of those off there. So I would entertain then a motion to the newly amended consent calendar.
I move we approve the newly amended or double amended consent calendar.
Second,
All right, we have a motion and a second. We'll go back to our old COVID days of the roll call vote. Council President Nissen
Aye.
and Councilor Minor.
Aye.
Councilor Rios Campos
Aye.
and Councilor Amend.
Aye.
And I am an aye as well. So amended consent calendar motion carries. And we'll have a presentation now from Greg then on the turkey dinner debrief and the holiday tree lighting
Great.
debrief.
I think I'll start with tree lighting. That's a little more straightforward, a little easier. Not that there's nothing wrong with turkey drive. There's just things to unpack. Tree lighting for the first time being in this building, bringing it back to City Hall, it was great. There are some learning lessons in that. And, those in the room right now, my voice is very loud. You can hear it very easily. When there's 100 people in here, you cannot hear it at all. So when you're trying to make announcements about, Santa's coming or what other kind of features we're having, that didn't work so well. And then, we try to have a lot in the building because it was like a clear evening, is exceptionally cold with the wind. And that then once people got in the building, they kind of got stuck and couldn't maybe, go and refresh their refreshment or get another treat. So looking at that kind of placement or how to work that in the future years. But in terms of the event itself, the Rounds High School Choir knocked it out of the park. Them you could hear because everyone was just dead silent to hear the choir and magnificence. Gresham Fire, want to thank them for bringing out Santa, and then, the lighting of the tree. Again, I think people were out for about 3 minutes before they got too cold. They wanted to rush back in. Tree looked great. We were, wondering how a garland tree would look compared to a panel tree. And, I think we need to tweak the star a little bit, but other than that, it's great. The decorations on the parking lot, inside of City Hall, the lights on the building, I think really nailed it. And I think people liked having it back at City Hall for that smaller town feel. Nothing wrong with the town center. That just had a different flavor from this one. And we had a lot more older guests compared to like families with smaller children. It was kind of older people that may or may not have children. So just again, a different kind of flavor for our guests. But I think as it's back here and refine it a little bit more, it's certainly popular and well received and a great event.
The Santa photo station was awesome. And there was even some of those older people that came out were in line to sit by Santa as well. So that worked out great. Sorry about that, Councilor Minor. Didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's all right. I just wanted to, I hadn't been to any of the tree lightings previously up to the town center, but none at the City Hall. But it was really, really fascinating and a great event. I just couldn't have, it exceeded my expectations. The fireplace going on the screen added a touch, but Councilor Real Campos, you would have been proud. It was really a cool deal.
Yeah, there's a great polar bear too dancing outside.
Oh, that's right. The polar bear. Without the polar bear, it wouldn't have been so good.
So that was the tree lighting for the turkey drive. So this we partnered with the East County Food Pantry on, and there's some I don't want to call them learnings, things to consider, whether we partner with them in the future or we kind of go back to holding in our own. And that's not something we need to discuss or decide tonight, just some general thoughts on it. One, it still took quite a bit of effort coordinating kind of that component, both in trying to help people sign up and how to optimize the sign up from what we had experienced, knowing kind of our community members' needs versus, what the food pantry sees, and bridging that. Part of that was they used a Google form. So we had a Google account and internet, and there was some at first difficulties with that, but we, had some workarounds. Coordinating, we ended up picking up a lot more of their supplies for the larger event, and that's, fine. And it's still just, what was that balance of staff time, trying to diminish that by giving it to the food pantry. But again, I think, people were served, maybe not quite the same way that we would have done it, but that doesn't mean it was good or bad, just a little different. Something we can discuss as we talk about the food drives for next year. The thing then for council to consider is, when we talked with council, it was great. We'll partner with them. There's $6,000, basically for this event. The food pantry requested reimbursement of about just over $2,800, leaving. Then we had some other expenses that we provided. So there's, I'll call it roughly 3,000 left from that event. And there was a thought of donating that to the food pantry to do other food pantry, whether it's boosting some weekly drives, there's extra milk or extra this or that because of Wood Village, kind of leaving it to the discretion of the food pantry to use that as they see fit, kind of recognizing the partnership with Wood Village. But that would take a council action, which is why we asked to be pulled out of the consent.
And just so you know, I pushed that. I think originally there was some pushback from Pastor Brad Busick, to not keep the change, so to speak. But I did chat with him and eventually came to the conclusion that, we could do some special Saturdays like Greg described and like they have done in the past. But this time around, when they promoted, he wanted to be sure that that the folks that were getting, like if it was hamburger or milk that they might not normally get, that they knew that it came from the city of Wood Village. But I basically sent Pastor Brad a note saying, that it would be wrong for him not to keep all of the money that we had budgeted for the event, because we're good stewards of our funds. We knew we could afford it, and we like to take care of our residents. So if there's no questions or comments, I'd entertain a motion on letting the church keep the change. Counselor Minor, you're on mute.
Okay. I just had a question in the concept here of working with the food pantry, and I happened to go down and talk to Pastor Brad myself today. And we had talked about this partnership with the food pantry so that it doesn't all fall on the staff's backs. Did that in general, that the partnership work? I think I hear you saying it did. And did it reduce the time that staff to carry out this event?
I would love to say that's a yes or no question. It's kind of either or with an asterisk. I think we use staff time a little differently. Was it as much as we would have? Probably not. And I'm also not sure we would have, if we had held a event in-house, it might have been a little more optimal in some areas comparatively. Again, I'm not trying to diminish what the food pantry does and the mission that they serve. We just do things a little differently and have some different lenses. Just an example is confirmation of receipt of the food box. We got some word that people would sign up and didn't hear back. That's going to happen regardless. Maybe, you try to call, you try to email, some people miss it, et cetera. But it seemed like that was a little more commonplace than when we ran it. But if we ran it, then we'd be running, all the reminders and things. There is also, how the drive-through was set up could have been optimized a little bit. And, in working with the food pantry on the toy drive this past weekend, which again, a great success in terms of serving some folks in need, sharing the power is a little tricky when you're trying to, co-manage an event, because on the one hand, both organizations are named in it, both have what they want to get out of it. And, that may not say it always aligns in the end goal, but the means and methods may differ. So I think if we were to move forward with the food pantry again for like the meal programs, we might just want to formalize a few things up front. Now, knowing what we know now,
Yep.
But I think it's something that can work. We just need to explore it a little more to clean up some of the rough edges.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Greg. I appreciate that summary, and I don't want to characterize what I've just heard, but this was the first time we've done that. So there's bound to be some wrinkles that have to get worked out. Again, you believe you feel a fairly good feeling that we can work those out so that it does become a true partnership, and both entities can benefit from the partnership?
I think so. I think it's just more, again, what are the full expectations? Because again, the food pantry may have some ones that we're not aware of. So when we see things, we're like, why is it done that way? And then we propose things or have some certain ideas or concepts, and it's like, well, and this is why. So again, more of that mutual understanding. Again, my concerns aren't concerns per se. That means to optimize, the partnership, the programs, and different lenses to serve the people.
It sounds like a debrief to me.
Yeah. For instance, I worked the second volunteer shift, which was all in the dark. And the pastor was trying to mark people off the list without a flashlight or a headlamp. And so, it took a long time sometimes to find people on the list. And where Greg said, optimize, we were basically putting resources into people's rigs from both sides of the car. So sometimes both resource delivery people would run away from the car without closing the back of it, and now the car's in line for another minute while somebody goes and decides to close the back of their car. And so, if resources were handed out all on one side of the line, nothing like that would ever happen. And so, it's just mechanically, it needs some work, but I think overall the church expands the reach. And then it also helps to promote their food bank as well.
Yeah. Well, I'm I appreciate that. I hope that we can keep building on it and smooth out some of those things. And it did appear like we had a shortage of volunteers.
Greg, do you have a breakdown on kind of, residents served? I know when we've done it, we've served anybody that basically, asked for it. But I think it'd be good to see, where those residents kind of a breakdown on who received some of these meals.
Yeah, and that was in the staff report. So there are 274 meal boxes provided, and 71 went to Wood Village community members. I think then the other larger share was to Fairview community members, and then kind of divvied up between, call it Gresham, Portland, and Troutdale. I think in relatively equal-ish numbers between those other three cities, but 71 were from Wood Village.
And so that's, almost double, what we had handed out in past Thanksgiving ones that were in the past two that were just Wood Village, because we were around 150 for Wood Village as an individual city in the first two, right?
Yeah, we did 150 meal boxes for the first two, and I think the number for Wood Village residents was higher,
Yeah.
but not dramatically so. I mean,
But
probably in
just the same
the
meal boxes.
upper 80s, lower 90s.
And there was some delivery as well. At least I know that on the shift that I worked, there was 3 people that came to pick up multiple meals to take them.
And that is something that, and it's Caroline's work, we really got optimized and we connected the food pantry with is using, I think it was Lyft, to actually do the meal pickups and deliveries. As kind of a charitable service provided by Lyft. So Lyft paid the drivers per delivery. So the drivers are made whole, but the organization didn't have to pay for deliveries. And we're using that for our drive this Friday as well. So those who are homebound or otherwise need a delivery, which was a kind of a logistical issue, handled by Lyft.
Cool.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, it wasn't mine. I wish it were.
All right.
You ready for a motion?
Well, we already approved the consent calendar.
This is the motion for the
Yeah, for the,
remaining money for the.
The extra money.
Pantry.
I'm sorry. Yes, ready for a motion.
I'd
Sorry.
move to, I'd move to donate that money back to the food pantry.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Council President Nissen, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilor Minor,
Aye.
Councilor Rios Campos,
I'll vote aye, but I think it'd be kind of more appropriate instead of when the church decides to do what they want with it, instead of that day saying, "Oh, this was provided by the city of Wood Village," that they kind of just globalize the like a sponsorship, so it's not so specific. I don't think we need to call out specifically what we're donating. It's just something more globalized as a sponsorship. But I vote aye as well.
yeah. Just so you know, that wasn't my idea. That was Pastor Brad's idea. So, yeah. And then Councilor Amend,
Aye.
and I am an aye as well. So motion carries. Thank you.
Excellent. We'll let Brad know at the food pantry and we'll let him know that it's a global sponsorship.
Look at that. We just put the city of Wood Village on the global stage.
Global stage, that's right.
At least in Fairview.
All right. And boy, it seems like it's a night for goodbyes because we have our outgoing Metro Councilor, Shirley Craddock, here to make a presentation tonight. And Greg's putting that up on the screen now, and then we'll welcome Councilor Craddock to the dais.
Well, thank you, Mayor Harden, councilors. Really pleased to be here with you tonight. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Shirley Craddock, and on the Metro Council for about one more week. Tonight, Metro Councilor-elect Ashton Simpson was planning to join me. Unfortunately, he came down with one of the cruds that are going around, not COVID, but he's very sick. So he's not able to join us tonight. I was hoping to have the chance to officially introduce him to you. Many of you may have already likely have met him. He's going to do a great job. I'm really pleased that he is going to be following in my footsteps. It's an honor to have him on the Metro Council. So my job tonight, my goal was to just have one last time to meet with you, bring you up to date on some of the discussions that are happening at the Metro Council is having, and then to see any questions or comments that you might have, if that's okay. So is it just the up arrow, down arrow?
Or, yeah, there you go.
Okay, so if that works for you, I'll go ahead and get started. Let's. So some of you have most of you on your council are very informed about Metro, the role that Metro has in the region, but I brought some of this information, recognizing that you might have people in the audience that don't always know the role that Metro plays. So this first slide is what we've dubbed the Metro Taco, but I think it does a good job of describing the role that Metro has in the region, because I know a lot of people are confused and not clear on the role that Metro has. It's that regional government that it has a group of responsibility that cross basically city boundaries. And they, if you look to the left of this arc, as you know, Metro, one of the first responsibilities that Metro was given years ago was the responsibility for the garbage and recycling in the region. And so Metro licenses them, gives and permits these different facilities that help us collect our garbage and also then process our recycling. And so Metro licenses the transfer stations in the region. And of course, the city of Troutdale has one that a transfer station Waste Management owns in Troutdale. Metro also is responsible for what we call Metro Paint. And this is a statewide recycling system that was approved by the legislature several years ago, where every can of latex paint that is sold in Oregon is available to be recycled. And so you pay a small fee, I think 50 cents or something, when you purchase the paint, and that supports the recycling system. And so paint that is, can't throw paint away anymore. It's not allowed. And so if paint is turned in, it goes to the recycling facility. And so the value of this paint now is remixed, new colors are added to it and it creates new colors, and then it's resold in the region. If you've ever been in a paint store in the Portland metro region, you might see a can of paint sitting there called Metro Paint, real fancy name. And so it's sold to a lower price. What's interesting now, it's being sold in 4 states in the West. In Washington, Idaho, Oregon, California, maybe 5 states, I think even Nevada. So the distribution of it has really grown, and there's a whole team of people that do that recycling. A big warehouse on Swan Island, it processes this paint. Metro is, of course, also responsible for the hazardous waste in the region. If you have any hazardous waste, you take it to a Metro transfer station, and they will take part. And then we also have our own private garbage facilities or public facilities. And they also then license all the recycling facilities and services in the region. So as you go up this arc on this taco, I love that name. I know some of this you already know, but I'll just quickly go through it. Is that Metro is also responsible for the land use and transportation planning for the region. And again, these are amenities that cross city boundaries. And so this regional agency works with the 24 cities and the 3 counties within the Metro boundary and on these different responsibilities. And as you go further over, then of course Metro has actually it's closer to 18,000 acres now, parks and natural areas. And of course, in addition, have several boat ramps, 19 historic cemeteries, and of course a golf course, and a camping ground at Oxbow, and a few other facilities that other agencies were glad to have Metro take responsibility for years ago. And then the Oregon Zoo, and of course, Metro Council is very proud of the zoo. It's the most visited paid facility in Oregon after Multnomah Falls, which of course is free to attend. And so we're really proud of the work that the Oregon Zoo had, the role that they play. They focus on endangered species. And then we have a responsibility for all the arts and events in the region. through the facilities like the Oregon Convention Center, the Portland Expo Center, and the Portland's P5. The 5 stands for the 5 performing arts facilities. That's the Arlene Stincher Concert Hall, the Keller Auditorium, the Antoinette Hatfield Hall, which has 3 performing facilities inside that building. So I'll go on now. I keep going the wrong direction here. So about 1.7 million people within the metro boundary. There are, of course, 6 of us that represent our districts, about 278,000 people in each of the districts. And then Metro Council President Peterson represents the entire region. She represents close to 45% of the state's population. So I'm going to go into some of the initiatives that we're working on right now. And first, I'll talk. This is a new responsibility that Metro has had. We've had our transit-oriented development work we've been doing for years. That's money that we receive through the Federal Transit Administration to build housing along our transit routes. But in 2018, the voters approved a bond measure, a $652 million bond measure to help build more affordable housing in the region. And in fact, enough housing to be able to house over 12,000 people. We're really pleased with the progress that we've made. We've well over 500 affordable homes have opened already. This information is from October. And so there's other facilities that have opened since then. But while only it's still a lot, 500 homes have opened up. There are over almost 3,000 that are in the pipeline that are ready to be, that will be available for housing in the fairly near future. And as you know, any construction project, there's a continuum. So there's some of those homes are in the design phase, others are in the permitting phase, and others are in the construction phase. And so the goal is that we will be able to house build enough housing for over 12,000 people. So what's unique about this, and I'm really pleased with this, is that this is truly a regional initiative. Housing is being built throughout the entire region. And as those of us that live in East Multnomah County, this is a change, as most of us know. In the past, the only county that was building affordable housing over the last many years is Multnomah County and the city of Portland. And so when that housing was built, it was always being placed, of course, in Multnomah County or in the city of Portland. And so what it did, it tended to concentrate poverty in one area. And so what's unique about this measure is that the funding it's allowing the housing to be built throughout the entire region. Washington and Clackamas counties did not build affordable housing before this measure, or very little of it. Let's put it that way. They didn't have the funding available to do that. And so when the measure was passed, when the Metro Council sent this measure to the voters, the decision was made at the time that the money that's raised in each county stays in each county. And so that's what's contributing to the ability of the housing to be built in each of these counties. And the colors here are showing the stages of where the housing is. I don't know which color indicates what, but some of those one color is for housing that's already been constructed and people are living in it. Another color is for housing that's in the design phase, and another color is for housing that's in the construction phase. And so you can see how it's being built all over. So there's housing now being built in Happy Valley, housing being built in Lake Oswego, housing being built all over the region, and places that we haven't ever had it built before. And so what this is doing is allowing people, first of all, to have a place to live and be able to, and we recognize how important it is to have a place to live, to be able to be successful and have a really functional family and a strong family. But also what this does is that it is allowing people to live where they need and want to live, where their job is maybe, where they have other family members that they might want to live near, their friends. And so this is really a successful measure from a lot of perspectives. So in addition to that, then, the Metro Council approached the voters, and I get these dates all mixed up here, 2020. I'm looking at Mayor Harden, hoping he's going to help me out here. This is regarding the supportive housing measure. And this is a business tax that is taxing those in upper 200%. Over people that earn over, families that earn over $200,000 a year, and then on businesses. And it's bringing in about $258 million per year, which is a pretty significant amount of money. And so the purpose of these funds is to help those that still struggle being able to live in affordable housing because they don't have the monthly income to allow them to do that. Everyone that lives in affordable housing or regulated housing pays rent. The rent is adjusted according to their income, but there's still a group of people that their income is so low, it's really difficult to be able to have housing available for them that they can afford. And so what this supportive services are, these funds are for, is to pick up the difference in that rent that others that they're not able to pay, to allow them then to have to live in housing. But it also though is supports and pays for that transitional needs that a lot of people have. And that is where you might have other needs like alcohol addictions, that you're trying to overcome alcoholism, mental health needs, also just to pay for other services to allow you to be ready to get into housing. So the measure is really picking up some of allowing people to live in housing that haven't had that chance before because their income is just very low and doesn't allow them to have those opportunities. So we're making good progress with this. It's definitely it's a continuum also, the measure is only, it took us, so the measure was passed in 2020. It took another year for us to begin to even be collecting the money, fully collecting the money, and then the beginning to distribute it out to the counties. So this is, it's building up, and over time there'll be more money available. And of course, as the counties work on this and get all their systems in place, I think you'll see that it really will begin to pick up on the amount of number of people that are being housed with these funds. So I'll go back to this in a minute after I finish here in case you see if you have any questions, and I can look at some of my information here. I have some more information that I can pass on to you, but I'll go through this first before I get to that. So I want to now move on to another responsibility that Metro has taken on. This has been something we've been doing for a long time, but we've increased the patrols that Metro has. These are called the RID patrols, or Regional Illegal Dumping Patrols. Metro has 6 full-time patrols that work the region. And so when there is illegal dump along our roads and in our public areas, these are the teams that go out and pick up that garbage or the whatever has been dumped alongside the road. What's interesting about the work that they're doing is that most of the illegal dumping that they are picking up are from housed people, not homeless people. During the pandemic, it just got started where people begin to dump their garbage and their items that they don't no longer want just along the road. And it's kind of become, it became a real problem. And so now we're trying to get it cleaned up, and hopefully that trend will go away in the future. So those couches that are along the road, those mattresses that you find along the road, illegal garbage that you find along the road, construction debris that you might find along the road, is look up Metro's website for the RID patrol. There's a phone number there that you can call. There's also you can record it on the website. And we're within 4 business days now, they are being picked up. So we've really caught up. During the pandemic, sometimes we were well over 2 months before anything could get picked up. So they've really caught up.
This week it was down to 3 business days. So we called in some couches that have been dumped, and they were gone in 3 days.
Thank you. That's good to know. Thank you. So when you go to Metro's website, the Regional Illegal Dumping, the RID Patrol dashboard, there's a dashboard there that is a picture of where they are in the pickup of the different of the requests. And so you can see where requests have been made. You can see what the status of that pickup is. And so it just gives you a really good picture of the work that they're doing. And so this is just a snapshot of one day of the work that they're doing to show you what the dashboard looks like. And so you're able to access this if you go to Oregon Metro and then Grid Patrol. So now I want to move on to the other responsibility that Metro has, is that, of course, the regional venues. And so, as I mentioned, we have a variety of venues, and it's really nice to be able to have them open again. It was really, as for everyone, of course, such a struggle during the pandemic when they all had to be closed down. I had to cancel many conventions. They're bringing thousands of people every year. And once those conventions are canceled, it takes years before they return, because many of them are in cycles, 4-year, 8-year cycles. You know, they're whatever the organization is, they move their conventions to different cities each year. And so it leaves a big hole in the number of the people that are visiting the city of Portland. But staff are working hard, working with Travel Portland, and trying to begin to fill some of those open opportunities to bring your convention to Portland. And of course, here is the spires at the Oregon Convention Center. And of course, our Nora, one of the polar bears at the Oregon Zoo. And then of course, our performing arts facility. So then, of course, the other responsibility we have are the Parks and Nature. And thank you again to the voters of the region. In 2018 passed a Parks and Nature bond measure. And this was, it's the funding that Metro uses to continue to purchase those special areas, lands in our upper habitat, land along our regional streams to protect and improve habitat along the streams, and also to most important thing we do is to shade these streams so they are cooler during the summertime. And that, of course, definitely improves supports fish habitat. What was unique about this bond measure? This is the third bond measure that the voters have approved since 1995. And this particular measure set aside money just to build trails. That hasn't been in the measures before. And so it was a really unique and wonderful opportunity that we could just focus on updating and continuing to improve our trail construction and upgrading trails in the region. And so I'm really proud and pleased with the success of this, and particularly for East Multnomah County, really received significant amount of money through this program. And so just congratulations to the 4 East Multnomah County cities that receive funding from this. So this is the Sandy River Greenway. This is money that went to the city of Troutdale. It was $1.9 million, Metro's contribution to the project. And Troutdale's done a really good job in when you request these funds, you have to be able to have a match to be able to be able to even apply for the funding. And so the city's really done a good job to prepare themselves to be ready to apply for these funds. And that it definitely contributed to their success in receiving the award. So this is going to be building a 1,400 foot linear park along the Sandy River. It connects downtown Troutdale heading north to the I-84 bridge, and then eventually it'll connect, of course, to the levee system. As you may know, the Port of Portland is getting ready in the near future to finish the trail along the levee system that will connect Fairview with Troutdale. And so there'll be a surface trail instead of just a gravel trail that's on the levee system. So this will be fill a big hole that we've been wanting to build for many years in the 40-mile loop system. I know Troutdale is already thinking about some additions to this, so I'm just really excited for them. Gresham then was also awarded during from funds from the bond measure. Gresham received $4.2 million They've been working on this for many years. So there's a trail that connects the Spring Water Trail that eventually will connect all the way to Marine Drive. Right now, the Gresham Fairview Trail, it starts, if you depend on what side of the trail you consider the head of the trail, but it starts at the Spring Water Trail and then heads south, and it stops at Halsey Boulevard. And so this is going to build the next connection of this trail that will take it all the way under I-84 along 201st Avenue. So Gresham's been working on this for many years to be able to get the next section of this trail built. And so this funding is filling a big hole. So in addition, then, another funding source that came available this year, the Regional Flexible Funds. These are funds that are available every 5 years. I'm looking at you guys to know the actual date. I think that's the time period. These are funds that Metro again receives through the federal government, and there's not a lot of money in these funds, but what is unique about them is they're flexible. So most of the funding that we receive from either through the Department of through the Federal Highway Administration and ODOT are funds that are very specific. They have to be used in a very specific way. But these funds, what's unique about them is the funding is available for a variety of projects. And so the Metro Council, just with the support of the Joint Policy and Advisory Committee on Transportation, just awarded the $47 million, and it included 29 projects were applied. They're requested funding, and 11 projects received funding. And again, Multnomah County, East Multnomah County really did really well in this, and I'm really pleased with this. So one of the projects that was funded through the Regional Flexible Fund, this is money being awarded to the city of Gresham. These are along 162nd Avenue. 162nd now is a new transit corridor, and this is a corridor that was created because of the originally called the Powell Division Project, and then it became the Division Transit Project, and now the bus system is called the FX. And so this is a corridor that was created to support the FX. And so it's a new transit corridor that goes north and south, connecting Powell Boulevard and goes all the way to Standing Boulevard. And so Gresham is applying for funding to build sidewalks along the areas, curb ramps, and buffered bicycle lanes. And so this is a real success for the city of Gresham. In addition to that, Multnomah County received almost $7 million to help with the build out of Standing Boulevard. And as you probably know and have noticed through the years, between the city of Gresham and Multnomah County, they're slowly trying to get Standing Boulevard built out from the west end of Gresham all the way north to Troutdale to actually Wood Village, I guess, get my city straight, to have sidewalks all the way, to have bike lanes all the way, and to have it just become a safer route. And so this is a section that is in Fairview, actually one of the more challenging sections, because there's several creeks that run through here. And so they'll be able to, they receive this funding to be able to do the work that you see here on this screen. So now on to the regional transportation plan. So every 6 years, Metro is required by state law. Metro is a metropolitan planning organization. We are required by federal law. We have to update our regional transportation plan every 6 years. And so we are in that process. That the Metro Council will make a decision about the regional transportation plan in 2023. And so I've been moving this along as through the last 2 years in preparing for that. So I think what's most important about this, of course, our land use informs our transportation system. And so, that was, of course, first adopted is the 2040 growth concept was first adopted in 1995. And so that is the land use system is what informs how we're going to build out our roads in the region. So the policies that we've been focusing on for this update are to update our climate smart strategy. This is the policy that influences our greenhouse gas emissions. In Oregon, if we're, the largest source of greenhouse gas emission is from our transportation system. So if we're going to make a difference in lowering our impact on CO2 emissions, it's in our transportation system. And so you probably have noticed there's a lot of emphasis put on how do we have fewer cars on the road, have less CO2 emitted, focusing more on active transportation, focusing on transit. And so this is the strategy that helps guide that. In addition, then a new policy that we've been focusing on is called the regional mobility policy. And this is a new way of how you measure capacity on our roads. For many years, capacity has been measured about how many cars can you actually fit on a road in a certain area. We're now moving to looking at capacity by measuring how many goods and people can you move along a road. And so it's going to create a different way of how you evaluate the construction of your roads in the future. And then the other updated policy that is they're focusing on is the high capacity transit strategy. We've been really successful in this strategy. It was first adopted in 2009. That's a strategy that has influenced where the light rail gets built in the future and helping us focus on those light rail projects. The light rail system is seen as the backbone of our transit system. It's efficient, it's effective, it's financially the least expensive, the systems, most expensive to build, but the least expensive to operate. And so we're now getting ready to, we've completed all the planning for those corridors. And now we're going to update it and move on to the next phase of this. And so this high capacity transit strategy is going to be focusing more on our urban arterials. So how do we help our transit system move along our urban arterials more efficiently and effectively? And so that's where the bus rapid transit comes in. And then of course the FX was the first project that was just completed. And so this is where are we going to focus the future bus rapid transit systems? We already are focusing them on 82nd Avenue and then also on TV Highway. But this new strategy is going to determine where other routes might be identified over the next 20 years. And then the regional congestion pricing. And you may have heard where there's discussion, ODOT is making plans to begin to look at our freeway system and beginning to price it. It is pricing for several reasons. One is to reduce congestion. Two is to influence driving behavior because we need fewer cars on the road. And third, then there will be, of course, they will receive some revenue from this. The region has been working with ODOT. Hopefully we'll be able to use some of those funds pricing to help us with our urban arterials, but that's a discussion that still has to be decided. So we're getting ready, we're in the phase now in the RTP, we call it call for projects. And so we're now reaching out to all the cities in the region and the counties to have them submit what projects do you want submitted in this RTP. And a project cannot be funded unless it's in the RTP. And as you know, the project has to first be in your transportation system plan before it can be in the RTP. So my most important point of this evening is to make sure that you're aware of what projects your city is submitting. And I recognize that Wood Village, Multnomah County builds and manages your roads for you. So I would definitely encourage you to be engaged and involved with Multnomah County so you know what projects they're going to be moving forward in that RTP that might be of value to your city in the future. So that's it. I'm sorry that Metro Councilor-elect Simpson wasn't able to be here tonight. He's going to do a great job, and you'll be in good hands with having him in office. And thank you for your time tonight. Thank you for this opportunity to meet with you and just bring a few points to your attention. So thank you very much.
Did you want to take any questions or?
Sure. Yeah.
All right. Council President Nissen, do you have any questions or comments?
I have no questions. Thank you, Councilor.
And Councilor Minor, any questions or comments for Councilor Craddock? You're on mute, Councilor Minor.
Okay, there. I'm a slow learner. Yeah, I have just a couple comments. Thanks, Counselor Craddock, for your presentation here tonight. As the council knows, I have been serving on a MUCTUC for the East Multnomah County Transportation Committee over the last 4 years. And I can tell you, and Counselor Craddock, these are comments that you heard yesterday, or should have heard yesterday. I wasn't at the MUCTUC meeting, but I did forward some comments over to Jessica Berry, because I know they were recognizing your long service to East County, but really to the region. I would call you the quintessential public servant. And for a lot of you, Councilor Craddock served on the Gresham City Council while I was superintendent or assistant superintendent over in the Gresham Barlow School District. And I first saw her over there, but she's been serving really East County for a long time. And surely I don't know how many years, more than maybe I'm familiar with. But I know just my comments at a MUCTUC, surely Councilor Craddock's name is on many, many, many projects in East Multnomah County, road projects. And I can't even begin to identify those. But I know from just my experience on a MUCTUC, she would always come to meetings and be able to inform the East Multnomah County Transportation Committee in ways that you can understand it. It sometimes takes time to get through some of the nuances of these projects. But she was very critical in projects, the Sandy Boulevard project that she mentioned, and worked throughout the county over the years that she served on Metro. Shirley, I want to just say Shirley, because I've known you for a while, but I do recognize you at one of our council meetings, and I did reference this in my comments for the MUCTUC, but I did recognize a trait that you have, and I watched it at a MUCTUC, and I even watched it at one of our council meetings when we were talking about waste management. And it was a few years ago. And it wasn't a very, perhaps one that you like to go to and hear some of the comments. But I've watched you in situations where there are often critical, maybe some criticism, but I've always watched you handle those with grace. I've watched you respond respectfully with more information, and for me personally, either at a MUCTUC, this meeting, our council meetings, etc., I've always left a little better informed than I did when I went into the meeting. So my comments here, you can hear them from myself tonight, and I wish you the best. You've been serving East County for a long time, and I hope you enjoy some new adventures with a little more free time in your life. So thanks, Councilor Craddock, and good luck to you.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. You reminded me something that I want to make sure and point out to you, those of you in this room and virtually, is the most impactful thing that this East Multnomah County group has done, have completed or success, was coming together as 4 cities, including TriMet, Multnomah County, Metro, ODOT, and agreeing on the East Metro Connection Plan in 2012. And that is the document, and that adoption of that plan between all these entities is what's guided the work that's being done in East Multnomah County, and has led you to the success that we had this year in within the amount of funding that came to East Multnomah County, or to Multnomah County in general. I guess we should always brag, but in one of the most important goals that I had when I was first elected to the Metro Council was to make sure that we had, all of us in the region, We're successful in achieving the goals that we want to achieve. And for many years, Washington County and even Clackamas County have received a larger share of funding from these regional programs. And for the first time, this is the year that East Multnomah County received the lion's share of the funding. And so you really need to pat yourself on the back and compliment yourself, because it's that East Metro Connection Plan that has led you to this, is that agreement that these are the projects we're going to focus on, and these are the fundings that we're going to go for funding in the future. And every project that has been funded since we all have been in office have come out of that East Metro Connection Plan. Of course, the first one and the biggest one was 238th. And having that finished. So congratulations to you. And so, in fact, going back to this RTP and request for projects, Metro is asking that each city is going to send in a letter that has been signed by the council. So you're aware of which projects are being sent in or to be added to the RTP. We want to make sure you're really aware of what's going in that package, so you are informed and influencing that decision. And so that will be something that you'll be asked to submit when they get ready to submit the final set of projects to the RTP.
Councilor Rios Campos.
No question. Just want to say, Councilor Craddock, thank you for your service. And I hope the focus in East County doesn't continue strong and we can get some more dollars out here.
For sure, especially for parks.
Councilor Min.
I do actually have a question. Councilor Craddock, thank you so much for your presentation and for your service to our community. Like, I feel like I learned so much just from your presentation. And I was especially struck by the red team. And when you said that trash is predominantly from housed people, and I didn't know that. I can assume that's, you know, that because of the couches or like their household items. But I feel like a lot of my community echoes like the trash problem and not assuming that comes from houseless individuals. So what information could I give my community about that, and about, you know, obviously the red team, but how we know that it's coming from housed individuals?
Well, I think it's the kind of garbage it is. You'll know. I mean, homeless people don't leave mattresses alongside the road.
Right.
Homeless people don't leave couches along the road. Homeless people don't leave construction debris along the road. So that's the kind of garbage that we're referring to. And right now it's making up the majority of the illegal dumping or the garbage that's being picked up. Now, the RIT Patrol does clean up a lot of homeless camps. That's still a big part of their job. So it's not like they're homeless people aren't doing their share. But by far, then we do know that most of the garbage, the tonnage, they pick up about almost 4 tons a day. And so we know that by far, most of it is from housed people. The other thing is, I make sure you're just aware that Metro will prosecute if they have any identifying information in an illegal dump. And, you know, there's some kind of identifier that tells who left this garbage. They will prosecute. We have a contract with Multnomah County. That's outside of the usual responsibilities that the county has with the county sheriff, and they will help us with prosecution. And so if there's adequate information available, Metro will prosecute when we find illegal dumping that someone has left along the road that they shouldn't.
Thank you very much. That's important information to have.
And if I could add to that last piece, because we experienced firsthand Metro's bird dogging and detective work on illegal dumping several years ago, had a semi-trailer full of tires dumped in Wood Village, and detective, again, we worked with her when she was with the sheriff's office directly, but then was, assigned to this Metro team. And so we knew her, and she tracked that whole trailer's history down, but lost a trailer when it was bought with cash from an unknown buyer. Everyone suspected they knew who it was some irreputable used tire shop. But there was not enough evidence to actually prosecute. But I mean, I was quite impressed with, the whole history that it got in a wreck on the 5 in Portland, went to a salvage auction, bought there by this company, and that company showed they sold it to another person with cash. I mean, they tracked that whole history down right up until the end. So
Cool. Nice to know. Yeah, so when I say we contract, so it's not your taxes that are paying for this, at least the taxes that you pay for policing. It's Metro's funding that is paying for this, although that's obviously funding, but it's in addition to what their other responsibilities are. So.
Well, that checks off one of my questions. Thank you, Councillor Mann. And then my other questions probably should be reserved for Ashton, but the housing affordability and stability there on the Metro Taco, and you mentioned that, you know, that is new work for Metro, primarily just from the last two bonds that have passed. But what does Metro see as their role in housing in the region once the bond spends are done?
That's to be decided. And in fact, that's going to be a regional discussion, I'm sure, in the near future. The Metro Council, there's a lot of responsibilities that have come to Metro over the last 12 years since I've been in office. And so the council is, in fact, that's going to be one of the first things that Metro Council President Peterson is going to be having the council do, is begin to think about, where do we go now? What are we going to focus on? It's not that we want to take on anything new, but we've got to make sure we can sustain what we're doing. And so when these measures end, what is Metro's role? Will we come back to the public and ask for more help? We don't know that yet, because we need to have that regional discussion about what is the most important to the region on the initiatives that we focus on. And recognize we've asked the public for a lot of money over the last 12 years in a variety of ways. And how do we want to sustain that, but can we sustain that? And so it's to be decided.
And I just wanted to take the opportunity also to thank you for your service as well. Councillor Mend is right. Councillor Minor is right. We've learned a lot from you. You know, we kind of know that that's one of the requirements of a Metro councillor, is that you're out and communicating with us and bringing us up to date on Metro. And, you know, you've always been gracious about, you know, how you handle the meetings for the cities that have their meetings at night and the extra requirements of you. And we just really appreciate the time and the care and the information that you've given us.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. But it's also, we're one region, you know, we're 24 cities, 3 counties, but one region. So we're all in this together. And so I just appreciate your engagement and your interest. That is what's really important, is to pay attention, be involved, you know, influence these discussions that we're having. And so I really appreciate that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, have a good evening.
Thank you, Councillor.
All right, so next up is the selection of our council retreat facilitator with Greg.
Mr. Mayor, are we skipping the review board?
Oh, I'm sorry. I am. You know, and he's leaving. And he's the guy that throws me the elbows when I miss something on the agenda, or if we're going too long on time, and there's not going to be a watchdog anymore. So yes, the review of the boards and commissions with Greg.
thank you, Mayor and councilors. It's cranking. There we go.
I'll just watch the occasional YouTube and send you emails later.
Yes.
So this is a discussion on the board and commission appointments. So just a bit of background, typically, you know, as positions come up for renewal, whether it's on parks, budget planning, et cetera, the historical, and by historical, I mean, I'll call it the last probably 12 to 15 years, maybe possibly even longer. The person whose term was expiring would be offered kind of first right of refusal, saying, hey, would you like to continue to serve on this board? If they said yes, that closed out that process. If they said no, it started a months-long campaign sometimes of trying to find someone interested in filling that role. And as the council has talked over the past couple of years, especially about more engagement and opportunities to be involved with the city, we looked at that one piece specifically of, well, gee, if we're always renewing people's terms, there's not necessarily an opportunity for new people to have a chance to at least apply for it. And so we decided this year, this is the year to start turning that over by basically saying, if your term is up, you need to actively apply, and we're going to promote it citywide that anyone in this city that's qualified can apply for it, and we'll consider the applications when we get them. And that's what we're here to do tonight, is now we have some applications and some weird anomalies, as we discovered with one of our boards, to talk through what you want to do for the next steps. And staff has some recommendations for that we'll get to here shortly. So in this round, there are 4 boards that had terms for renewal. There is urban renewal, and it's a 4-year term. And the makeup is it's the entire city council with at least 2 then other community members. And it was one of those community member seats up for renewal. Budget committee is a 3-year term, and there has to be at least equal number of community members as to elected officials. And that's driven by statute. So not a lot to mess with there. And there was a renewal on the community member side is that one as well. Planning Commission is a 4-year term. What they set, there will be 5 members. And then for Parks Commission, it's 2-year terms. And this one's a little interesting because a few years ago, I think about a year ago, we changed it to a minimum of 5 members. It's varied between 5 and 7 over the years, but we decided to do a minimum. That way, if more people are interested, maybe there's projects or new things going on, it can expand, but then it can also contract back down as maybe opportunities or interests wane. And of that 5 memberships, 1 may be from council and 1 may be from planning. Not that they shall be, but can be. And I'll get to that anomaly here shortly of our new makeup of parks. So for urban renewal, there was 1 opening, and it was the current urban renewal board member, Stanley Dirks. His application's in there, interested in renewing that term. For budget committee, it was 1 opening with a new applicant. So the member whose term was expiring chose not to apply. We did notify everyone of this is the new process this year. So didn't connect with why they didn't apply, but didn't apply. And so I have a new one, Melissa Thomas. You may have seen her at some of our recent community events. Definitely interested and engaged in trying to just be a larger part of the city. For Planning Commission, 1 opening with 2 applications. So again, Stanley Dirks going for a renewal for his position, and a new member, Janice Dole from the Tree Hill area. Seems to have an interest in kind of land use and planning and things. I'm going to pause real quick for Planning Commission because those terms, unlike all the others that expire at the end of December, planning is mid-March. I don't know why. It must have been when Planning Commission was first formed, and they just kept that same date for the terms. So since there is a bit of time, there's a couple of things if you all want to explore or look at. 1, we can set the expiration to be December 31st with everything else. We can also look at that membership language to be, for example, like parks or budget, where it's a minimum, not a set number. If there's interest in maybe looking at what you want to do with that membership composition. And because the term doesn't expire till March, there actually is some time to look at that if you want to. Now for parks. Parks had 1 person's term ending. There were no applications, but there are currently 2 counselors serving on parks and a potential for a 3rd, given that it appears Mark Clark received the most write-in votes, but that has not gone through all the steps with the county, which we're still working with the county on what that looks like. But there's a potential for then 3 council members to be listed on the Parks Commission. That's kind of interesting for 2 factors. 1, that'd be a quorum on parks. And so then if it's advisory, but you've got a quorum of council, what does that really look like? And also the code just says, well, it's 1 from council. So again, you don't need to necessarily tweak this one right now, but we'd like direction on what you'd like to do. You could remove the 2 council representatives. I'm assuming 2 because assuming Mark is on the council. And just back to the named one, which is Councilor Rios Campos is the named council representative. Or you could look at that code language and go, well, maybe we want to have more councilors on that. Not so much an issue with parks because it's an advisory board versus like planning. You don't really want a quorum of counselors on that because the council is then the appeals board. And if the other council representatives are removed from the board, that doesn't necessarily prohibit their participation in meetings. They can still attend meetings or public, and then as the Parks Board allows, they could still, offer their input and ideas, et cetera. So those are where we are at with the openings, the applications. And so what we're looking for tonight is what you want to do around the code language of the ones we mentioned, and then how you want to fill those. We've added room on the next agenda in January, that's January 10th, to do interviews. That's what we've typically done when a new person goes on, is there's, I think, about 5 set of questions we've asked, kind of tell us about yourself, why you're interested, what do you plan to do, that kind of thing. So we can certainly set that up, notify the applicants, and then basically use this whole process in the future. So it doesn't always have to go back to you of, oh, we'll just go, these are ones that are open, here's the interview date, and then council does their gig. So to recap, how do you want to fill the positions and what do you want to do around any of the language things mentioned?
Involved in this one?
Sure, I'll jump into this critter.
All right.
As far as the planning commission, I believe it would be a wise step to go with a minimum. Planning commission in the past has been one that's been difficult to fill. And by going with a minimum, that gives us an extra body there for the time being, because we very well could have no one the next time around. It would bring us back down to that same number. And I think at the same time, it would be wise to change the end of term to the end of the year to coincide with the rest of the other positions. And as far as parks go, with the potential to have 3 counselors, I think there should be at least one removed from it, with potentially 2 being the better option, but at least one. And that still gives a little bit of flexibility of having two counselors on there, being an anomaly that we're running into here.
And Councilor Minor?
Well, just overall, and I got lost in some of this with the numbers, but we have, it looks like we had, if I followed that, one position open on the planning commission and 2 applicants. Is that correct?
Correct. One of the applicants is the current person that holds it, and
Right.
one is a new person.
Yeah, you know, my overall concept in this is, let's not exclude anybody if we don't have to. So if it means tweaking the number on the planning commission, then we ought to do that. And I would support that. If we can't do that, whenever we have a candidate that has, petitioned to be on one of the committees and we're not able to fill it, not able to satisfy that, let's always make sure that we have good conversations with them so they can serve on another committee, because we obviously need volunteers. So and again, tell me again, how many people do we have on the parks right now, or how many openings are there?
Well, technically, there was no openings per se, because it has the minimum of 5 members and there's currently 9 members. But why there was an opening is one of the members' term was up. And so there could have been an opportunity for them to renew or, consider other people, but there were no applications for parks. But we also wanted to use this opportunity to explain, actually, there are currently 2 on council and potentially will be 3 come January.
So if we took 2 off, there would still be 7. So even though a term's expiring, because it's above the minimum of 5, we don't have to appoint anyone to fill that expiring term.
Okay.
So,
Correct.
Yeah, I would, I'm leaning towards 2 from council, not more than 2. If that's, is that the question?
Yeah, kind of what do you want to do about the council members, and is it an opportunity to look at the language, or is it that's the right makeup for it? And it sounds like so far what we've heard is no more than 2. You don't want a quorum on parks.
Yeah, no. That's pretty heavy thinking for me right now. It's getting late. I don't think I have anything else there, but let's try to keep people involved and move these if we have to get people on some committees when they want to serve.
Councilor Rios Campos.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with the other two members thus far. I think changing the language to a 5 minimum, as we're seeing a small increase in some areas of more people wanted to volunteer, I think it's important to engage them all. And then looking to adjust the term language and ending it on the 31st of December, like the rest of the boards and commission, I think it's appropriate. And then I'm also in agreement with no more than 2 council members on the Parks Commission.
Thank you. Councilor Amend.
I am also in agreement with my fellow councilor members, and my brain is also hurting. So I'll just leave it at that. I haven't heard anything I disagree with yet. So, thank you.
Okay. Well, I'm going to talk now, so maybe you'll get your chance. I agree with chewing up the terms of the service. I'm scared of a minimum on the planning commission because if it ended up as an even number, a tie is a loss for the petitioner. And so I would rather, and we shrunk the planning commission to 5 because we always had trouble getting a quorum. And so I think that if we were to make a change, I would like to see it maybe go back to 7, but I think it needs to stay an odd number, and a minimum doesn't guarantee that. And so, but maybe, you know, go back to 7 spots, you know, and then at least, you know, be able to hopefully draw a quorum for whomever is going to be before the commission. But definitely ensure that we keep it at an odd number. Because, you know, they make, you know, unlike parks, which is advisory only, the planning commission makes real decisions that can have serious impacts on our city. So so I would go for a 7 there. And then in terms of the councilors on the Parks Commission, you know, I could be satisfied with 2 as well. I think it should be the just what's in our statute in terms of council involvement, the 1, and then other councilors can go anytime. I think I've been to the last 3 or 4 parks meetings actually, and there is opportunity for people to make testimony. But if the overall feeling for council is to let 2 be on there, then I'm fine with 2.
Well, great. So I'll recap. So it sounds like there's certainly, you know, let's clean up the term date on planning. Let's bring back some language about expanding that membership. And then let's tweak the language on parks for, you know, no more than 2 from the council on parks. And then so what we'll do is we'll bring that language back in January 10th as well for you to consider, along with inviting everyone in for an interview, and we'll have their application again in that packet with the prepared, you know, set of questions. So then, you know, we'll probably do that first and then look at code language. Code would take 30 days to be in effect, but that really only affects the planning commission. And you can just make one of the terms effective, you know, upon the code fix. And there's nothing on the horizon right now that would really need a meeting that we know of between kind of January and early February at this time.
And then one thing that we did when we went through the appointment process for counselors was we kind of fine-tuned the questions and came up with a set ones to ask. And so I would invite Greg to send us the questions that we currently use, and each counselor, if you want to come up with a question, and then, you know, if you think of one that isn't already there, then maybe we can short it down or kind of cut it down to a set of questions that we're going to always use for the boards, just like we created one that we'll always use for council appointments.
Could even just refine the council appointment ones and make it, just tweak it for more of the board commission level. Since you all spent a good deal of time refining those questions, I'm pretty sure we can tweak that enough to fit the board and commission kind of level. How does that sound?
Yeah, if you want to take a shot at those tweaks and then send them out to us, that'd be awesome.
We can do that. All right, thank you very much.
We'll keep Greg and we'll get to that one that I was so anxious to get to before. Selection of the council retreat facilitator. And I hope everyone saw their score sheet in the staff report, and maybe you can pull out your score sheet now, because we'll eventually get to that. And then originally the thought was that neither of the potential facilitators was going to be able to join us because they had prior engagements. But we do have the pleasure of one of them joining us, and that's Bravo Point will be here tonight.
And she is, so I'll pop on the Zoom, that's Martha. So again, a bit of background. This is for a new retreat facilitator. So on October 11th, when we discussed what we want out of the 2023 retreat, certainly discussed the general topics, the mission, vision, goals, recap the year, financial projections, and then kind of the two big projects were kind of what we really want out of this outreach and engagement effort that's underway. What's that 5-year plan look like? And then certainly our APP, and we set the schedule for Saturday, February 11th. It was also discussed that, Mike Abate has done well by us for the last many years in retreats. And, I'm sure we'll continue to use them in various capacities. And it's also time to look for a new flavor for the retreat. So council said, go ahead and develop an RFP based on what's worked, what's that formula, and then what we want to talk about. So staff developed the RFP, sent it out. We both had it advertised and then sent it to several firms that had been recommended to us. And we received back 2 proposals. Both those proposals were from firms we direct solicited based on feedback we received. So I'm going to a very quick summary of both kind of firm/proposals, and what my information here is from the proposal that was included in your packet. So Bravo Point with Martha, and looking at the experience and things, and I'm not saying this is the only thing the firm does. Again, I'm trying to do a summary here. Really focuses on those policy and politics portions and that organizational growth and leadership, and kind of, I'll call it government to government relations. The RFP was deemed complete and followed everything we asked for. Under the special considerations mentioned, hey, this is a public meeting. There are public meeting considerations to take into account. And then the price for the whole retreat was $8,000. With Capacity Building Partners, so that was Maria Lisa Johnson, again, based on their materials, really looking at that social justice lens, community-based organizations, organizational development, and really had a strong focus in kind of community health and those initiatives and things. Again, followed the RFP, was deemed complete, also called out it's going to be a public meeting in those special considerations, and also was $8,000, which is nice to see. That seems to be the value of this service when you have 2 firms with the same or nearly the same price, which also, if you look at Mike Abate over the years, it was, generally increasing. So, the price seems to be about what it is. And in the budget, we had $8,500. So price seems to be on point. And, both firms certainly capable of and qualified to handle this. It seems to be, a matter of what flavor you may want. Again, it may be with Bravo Point and Martha, you're getting more of that government to government experience, which is going to be a thing with us in the kind of that 5-year lookout and things. And then with Capacity Building, it's kind of from more of the social lens, which is also a part of our retreat and, that 5-year plan. So doesn't seem like you can go wrong with either one. I think it'll just be kind of what mix or a different flavor you want. And so there is the very simple scoring sheet provided in your packet. So that's certainly one thing you can do. And the scores were broken down just based on the RFP. Here are the things we're asking for in the RFP. Here's, the score for that. So certainly this can be time for you to discuss your scores, things that you caught your eye or caught your focus that may have impacted those. And then, we could either do just a straight across what people scored or ranked. And then we can certainly tabulate that and see where that ranks. Again, Martha is listening in. The other firm had another obligation, as did Martha tonight. So, but hers became available. So if you want to ask questions, perhaps you can look at that. But again, I think you can't go wrong with either firm. So now kind of turn it over to you all and how you want to discuss your scoring and which firm you'd like to move forward with.
Council President, I'll start with you. You're going to be gone, so I'll get you.
I'm gonna step out of this one since I won't be participating.
All right. Then Counselor Nissen, or Counselor Nissen, Counselor Minor, I don't know where my head's gone tonight. If you have your score sheet with you, if you want to add that to the discussion or any other comments.
Yeah, I think what I would prefer to do is have some conversation. And then I'll share my my scores. But let me say overall that again, what Greg said, they seem qualified. I kind of had a little trouble really distinguishing the two proposals. I gave a slight nod to the capacity builders, but it was only because it was organized in a way that I could sort out some of the points of our RFP. But that in no way should indicate that Brava Point isn't certainly qualified. I want to say overall that we all know this, that paper screening is one of the elements of making a selection on an RFP or application for any position. But for me, it's always references. And as we work through this, and I know staff will be doing references, that's going to be more important to me than what I saw in these two proposals. So a couple of other points is that Brava, and I'll just speak to Brava. I gave Brava, and actually numerically, these are scored almost identical. But Brava, I also pointed out in my notes that I gave them an edge because they meant the proposal mentioned working with mayors and cities. I think that's an important piece of a facilitator. I both talked about social justice, equity, and we're focused on that. But I think I think it's an important aspect what a facilitator could bring to it. And I don't know whether Capacity Builders has that or not. Maybe they do, but I didn't see it in the proposal. Let me see. I got a number of notes here because I was doing this in between some COVID resting paperwork. But I don't mean to downplay my comments here because they're really important. Keeping the retreat. Nobody really mentioned keeping the retreat. How they, when you talked about conditions, or general approach to the meeting, I just I want to make sure, and this is going back to references. I want to make sure that the facilitators, that the facilitator we go with, will keep us on track. They mentioned using the staff and the council to be gatekeepers, and that's important. Keeping us on track on the topics and mentoring, sometimes over talking on a topic, and just facilitating the conversation. I assume that's one of their techniques, and they talked a bit in general, but not very specific. Scores reflect the organizational structure. Our responses neither indicated. Hang on, I'm just talking to myself as I look at these notes, and it described. I want again. I was looking for some specific language about when we're in discussions. As always, in a whole day, there's going to be a lot of topics brought up, and some of them are going to be relevant to that discussion, and some aren't. But they're relevant. And they're important, and we got to make sure we keep track of some of those thoughts, that we come back to it another time. So let me Let's take a look here. Slide edge. Well, anyway, that's the, that was my, what I got from reviewing the paperwork. But I'm going to really rely, the paperwork to me isn't going to make the decision here. I think it's got to be the references and how they come back. And so anyway, those are my comments. Slide edge to Brava because of the work with the cities. And Greg, you pointed that out too. I appreciated that because I didn't say it quite that way. I just know I didn't, I saw that work with the city. So those are my comments. So do you want my score?
Yes, please.
Yeah. I got a Brava 5, general approach 4, productive meeting 3, special considerations 4, other 4. Qualification, capacity building partners. I got 4. I got 4, 4, 4, 4, and a 3.
Thank you, Councilor Minor. Councilor Rios Campos.
Yeah, similar to Councilor Minor, but kind of on the other side, I had capacity building with the slight edge, and just because again, it's just really depending on you know, like Greg said, we couldn't go wrong with either one of these, and one thing that for me is huge is the aspect of community building as well. And so as we look for the 5-year projection, we have to have that in the forefront, that it's the benefit of our residents in our community. And so that kind of, for me, just gave me the slight edge, as the facilitation style just is a little different. And so it is with the focus of building community at the start of the retreat, which is, I think, is essential as we work forward, especially when it comes to having those maybe heated discussions or you know, those topics that we don't see eye to eye on. And so for me, I kind of scored them more holistically, and then for me it was more of a you know, 19 with the capacity builders and the 18 for the Brava. And again, very just slight edge, but I also believe we can't go wrong with either one of them.
Did you have a score sheet that you wanted to take a run through scores on?
So with so for capacity building, for qualifications of facilitation, just because I do know that style of facilitation that they use, and for me it is very beneficial. So I put them at a 5. Their approach, a 4. Productivity in the meeting, a 4, and special consideration, a 4 as well. And then for quality, for Brava, facilitation was a 4, general approach a 4, productivity meeting 5, and special considerations a 5.
Did you score either one on other?
I didn't.
Okay, thank you.
But I do. I mean, you know, I know Councilor President Nissen isn't going to be here, and he decided to kind of step away. But I think it'd be, at least for me, it'd be good to hear his perspective, because again, currently he is a part of the council and could give us a different perspective, as well as we all look at it differently. But I'll give him that opportunity to decide.
Unfortunately, Counselor, I'm sorry to disappoint you, because I wasn't going to be part of it and participate. I did not read through or score for either entity.
Councilor Mend.
Yeah, I scored Brava slightly higher at 19 and then capacity at 18. One of the biggest factors for me was Brava's work, or Martha, your work with the tribe. And I value that very much. And yeah, I think I'll just echo what everyone else said really, but it's in terms of like both, I'm sure would do a great job, but for me, Brava and Martha, yeah, that's my decision. So do you want to hear my scores?
Yes, please.
I did not score other. I misunderstood. So capacity, quality of firm and facilitator 5, general approach 5, meeting, productive meeting 4, and special considerations 4. And then Brava, qualifications of firm and facilitator 5, general approach 4, productive meeting and special considerations 5.
Thank you for that. And then I'm just going to go through my scores and put a comment beside each one. So on Bravo Point and hello, Martha, I apologize for not giving you a better introduction earlier. On qualifications of firm and facilitator, I gave Martha 5. Full disclosure, I'm the person that recommended her to the city, and that's because I have personal experience with retreat that she has facilitated. And in addition to being a great facilitator, she's fun to work with, and I think that's a good thing to have when you're planning an 8-hour day. General approach, I went on 5, and this is where I agreed with Councillor Minor that broader scope of service to cities and then also counties, and having worked with those types of entities around the country brings a really good perspective. Productive meeting, I went with 3, and that's just because, I was a little nonplussed by sense of collective accomplishment being the what we achieve in the day. But I mean, that could just be because neither applicant has an exposure to the APP or what it means to the city, and that annual performance plan is what we actually need to achieve. Special considerations, I gave her a 5 because I think it would be beneficial for both the tribes and us to have a positive working relationship with Martha. And for other, I gave a 3. And again, not the fault of the facilitator firm necessarily, because they answered all the questions we gave them to answer. And mine was kind of a question that we didn't give them to answer. And that is, what element of DEI would be part of the presentation. On capacity building for qualifications of the firm and facilitator, I gave it a 4, but I just wanted to highlight that that's really cool that their owner has 2 master's degrees, either a glutton for punishment or incredibly intelligent, or both. General approach, I gave it a 5, and that's because I was struck by the phrase community well-being. And, we've talked about it for at least the last couple of retreats that we may have always felt like we did a good job serving the community, but we never really asked the community. And so that community well-being was a great phrase. Productive meeting, a 4, but only because it had a little bit more detail about what we consider a productive meeting to be, but still didn't talk about the APP necessarily. And then special considerations, a 4, and primarily because she's bilingual. And as both facilitators mentioned, we could end up with public, and some of that public, as we know, might need translation. And so it's kind of cool that she could do her own on-the-spot translation. And then in other, started to give it a 5. I downgraded it just because it seems like she was in a hurry to type the response. I found a couple of typos. So I downgraded it from a 5 to a 4. But was going to score that high primarily because of the idea of participatory social justice. And so we can't, it's a contact sport, we can't just make it happen by saying that we want it to happen. And so if you were doing the quick math in your head, or Keith Olbermann used to say, if you were scoring at home or even if you're alone, they tied at 21. And so when I thought about my tiebreaker, my potential tiebreaker would lean towards the DEI. However, I know that I have pushed that focus onto a couple of retreats. And while we can't say we're necessarily doing everything right, folks might want to move on from that issue a little bit. But I did think that if I was able to push people over the edge of the anti-racist statement, that capacity building firm might be a little bit better at helping us shape that. But, you know, we'll go with.
So I'm gonna turn to
If
the
it was a clear score winner.
winners, people.
Well, if I have it right, Rios Campus and Amend canceled each other out.
Yeah.
You were also a tie, so it all fell to Minor.
So,
And if I did the math right, he came out just 1 point ahead for Brava.
okay. So Martha, you're our scoring winner. And as a result, if you have just a moment, because we're over time, but I want to just ask you 2 questions, okay? Greg gave me an interesting article to read, why bad strategy is social contagion. And it points out that, and I just want to get your feelings on this, that strategy is not equal to forecasting. Strategy is to deliver solutions to the problems that you can see right now. And that strategy is, again, it said not equal to ambition, but equal to problem solving. And the person that was being interviewed gave the analogy of climbing a mountain. So your ambition is to get to the top, but that's not your strategy if one ridgeline comes to an end and you can't climb to the top on it anymore. It's what are you going to do after that? And so I just wanted to see kind of what's your opinion of strategizing, and if it kind of fits into that, it's not ambition and it's not forecasting type of model.
Well, first of all, thank you, Mayor Hardin and council members, and thanks for allowing me to just sit in on, I listened to some of your meeting tonight with Councilor Craddock's farewell, and it's just really great. I'm just so impressed with the service that you all do. And Mayor Hardin, thanks so much for the softball question at 8 o'clock at night. I feel like I could write a short essay probably on that. I might need to spend some time thinking about it. Yeah, I don't feel like I have a great response other than, you know, I spent a quarter of my life inside Portland City Hall. I feel like I really have a deep appreciation for the role that local governments play. And when you start talking about strategy, what comes up for me is that your circumstances are constantly changing. You have core services you have to provide. You're dealing with multiple crises at any given time. And you have diverse populations that you have to serve. And strategy for me really means that you need to be focused on a short set of priorities that you know how to execute really, really well. And I think at the end of the day, whether you're a big city or you're a small city, you're responsible for that, even when your environment changes. So I like the metaphor of climbing mountains when you lead in local government. I think there's probably a lot of days that it feels like that's what you're doing. And so I think I want to probably spend some, I'd urge you to send me that article, Mayor, because I'd like to spend some time noodling on it. And I don't want to take up too much of your time because it's been a long night, but I am happy to answer any questions that folks have. And I recognize that a 3-page proposal isn't very much to really communicate kind of the depths of some of the things that I think would be possible to do. But thank you.
Thank you. All right. So does anybody else have any questions for Martha at all? Councilor Minor, Rios Campos, or Amend, you can just unmute yourself if you like. All right, so hearing none, Martha, we all look forward to chatting with you on the phone prior to the retreat, and then seeing you in February. And Greg is going to send you this article. And for council, I'm going to send it out to you as well, along with all of the other notes that I put on it for consideration. Thank you very much. Now we'll go on to our Public Works Director's report. And Greg, I'm assuming that's with you.
Yeah, it's still the Greg show because John is out recovering from his hip replacement surgery, and happy to say he's recovering exceptionally well. Although he will say, and if he's listening, he is not recovering as fast as he would like. I think he wanted to be running a marathon 2 days after he got out of the surgery. But he actually has been with us virtually on and off for about a week and a half now. And then plans to be full-time virtually next week and then back in person, that week after Christmas. So
Good.
kudos to John and his recovery. Yes, John, you are recovering. I know he's watching. So quick highlights, a lot was in your packet. So I'm just going to spend a little bit on some of the highlights with that or some things that were maybe outside the packet. First, again, the fatality report was in that packet. That's something that's shared at the monthly Amuktuk meeting, and that was yesterday. And what was interesting about this fatality report is, it's really to kind of think about those who have died on a transportation system, whether they're biking, walking, or on some kind of motorized vehicle. What it also then tends to do is start getting speculation of why there are why there are fatalities, larger vehicles and speeding vehicles, and yet there's nothing in the report to indicate some of the underlying factors involved. And I think that's also important to think about in terms of when we're looking at these tragedies, what could have been avoidable, and what can we do in terms of transportation systems to make them a bit safer. And then not diminishing the fact that people do die on our streets, every year. So reports in there run, it's ticking up the past couple of years. So it's also a bit concerning there. Very happy to say that as of this afternoon, Stephen, he passed his Water One certification test with the state of Oregon. So he'll be receiving his Water One certification. So kudos to him. He'd been studying up a lot lately and was quite nervous. There's a lot of math. I just grabbed his study book and read some of the questions out loud yesterday in the office. They scared me. So kudos to him.
Congrats.
They were like a math story problem that you would have nightmares about, like before a final, except these were real. Got some new hires in the works. So tentatively on board, we'll have, his name is James from Wood Village, will be the utility one focused on grounds. So thinking his start date just over a week on the 21st. So happy to have him come on board. And then we stole one from Fairview and I'm happy about it.
Yes.
For our new public works supervisor position, we revamped Jonathan's position since he left to spend some time with his mom. So we revamped that to be kind of 50% in the field, 50% in the office, to really kind of be that coach, mentor, optimize our field operations while getting the admin support. So that is Erica, we call her Derek's protege. She calls herself that, so it's okay. Holding water certs, testing for sewer certs, at the level 2 level. So, highly capable, highly, just a great all around person. I think will really be a good jump start to our team. The crew is happy that was the selection. The internal folks are happy with that. So it should be really great. Speaking of really great things, our SCADA system had some issues about a month or so ago and the comms went down, but because we were in process with, systems control, we already had things in the works that prevented us from spending probably tens of thousands of dollars on kind of obsolete, ineffective comms equipment. The system control fast-tracked the new comm system. That was going to be kind of a later piece. It's in place, it's running. There's still some, tweaks to make to here and there that we'll have, but it's up and going. It's awesome. We're very pleased with their work. I don't know who they know per se, but when you and I call Verizon, nothing really happens. When they called Verizon, we were getting an account set up in about a half hour later. So I don't know who they know or really what they do, but they do it very well. We've got some permit inquiries for both the building across the street. It looks like Tanny's Bakery is moving forward their improvements. So we've had the building owner in to start talking about plans and various improvements to facilitate that. And we had a business owner inquiring for a byway building for a little restaurant over there. So things are still moving and shaking in that regard. In terms of the master plan, we had a meeting on that the other week for the update, some work to do on sewer, which isn't a surprise, mostly the trunk line. And again, water, it just kind of depends on what may happen at the former Greyhound Park site as to what's needed there. So overall, The engineering consultant firm was just pleased as punch about our system, its capacity, its condition. They said this is rare to see. And so as we were taking some of the improvements, says, oh man, look at these things. They're like, no, you don't understand. Like some people just barely figure out how to just maintain what they got, let alone optimize it. And we're kind of moving into the optimizing next level. So that was just great to hear. And last but not least, just want to point out code enforcement cases. We're at 351 cases at the end of November. That doesn't include the ones we've opened up in the first couple of weeks of December. So we're over one case per calendar day of our code enforcement, and we're closing a good number of those as well. And we've got some in progress, including our monument case, which we're taking to that next level. So that's where that one at. And some others we're making progress on them. So we're moving forward on some of those larger cases, and then the day-to-day stuff is going. Councilor Minor, was that you?
Sorry about that. I was trying to get it on mute before I.
I think, all is going quite well in public works. We're going to be really happy to have John back, and then really excited about some of the new people we're bringing on board and what that'll kind of look like, January moving forward. We're kind of calling it day one and kind of revamp a lot of our systems and things. So, yeah. And then in January, you'll have the kind of the year-end report for public works as a whole from John.
All right. Any questions at all for Greg?
Oh, and the crosswalk project is on for January. They're already doing the street locates and markings, if you've seen that on Halsey. So that's going to be awesome.
So if everybody's ready, we'll have Seth with the finance director's report.
Mr. Mayor, councilors, included in your packet is the finance director's report. And you might have noticed that there was some narrative in it this time. It wasn't just charts and graphs. And so I do have a couple points I wanted to highlight. Our audit, we received the award for the comprehensive financial report through GFOA. I think this is our 18th year in a row. A lot of really good work by all of our staff on that. We got it submitted and had a surprisingly few comments for corrections. So, and as an update, we also wrapped up this year's audit, and we did that about a month earlier than we did last year. So we're able to do some cross training with staff. That's something that we're going to continue. So that was the good news. Moving on to our next item. Property tax has come out in November. So we've gotten some preliminary data from the county. The unfortunate news is that our multifamily change property ratio went down substantially. That was at around 0.48%, 0.48 last year. It dropped to 0.35. And what that means is that the Byway project had a real market value of $45 million. We were anticipating that was going to come on the tax rolls with an assessed value of about 22 million. It came on with about an assessed value of 16. What that means for the urban renewal district is there's about $100,000 a year less revenue from that property. Practically speaking, what that means is that we were forecasting that with the completion of that project, we would actually wrap up the urban renewal district in about 2031, 32. That would push out 2 years. So we will still raise the $11.5 million. It's just going to come in slower because that was kind of the project that was going to launch our revenue. And instead of hitting $700,000 in TIF financing, we're a little under 6 this year. That doesn't impact the district's ability to operate. But we were forecasting last year's 5-year financial forecast, a little bit of margin between the operating and debt service we owed and what we were anticipating in TIF. That margin's gone with this change. Greg and I met with the assessor's office today because when we found out, we went to set up a meeting with them. They were saying the thing that drove that ratio down is they basically from 2018 to 2022, their office had the real market value of all of our mobile home parks double. So it was 100% increase in value from 2018 to 2022. Part of that drop was masked because of how they treated the construction in progress on the byway. They actually said it's been dropping for a number of years. We just didn't see it until this year. I don't know that there's anything we can do about it other than to kind of recalibrate our projections moving forward. We did also point out some trends that we're going to ask them to follow up on, mainly that since we started getting our own change property ratio calculated in 2018, we used to have a pretty big spread between East County and the rest in Portland. That spread has narrowed by half over the last 5 years. And we asked for some more information on why that was going on, because while we feel like there's a lot of value in East County, I wouldn't have expected that we were doubling or tripling the growth of Portland over the last 5 years across all categories. So we do have some additional follow-up, but I think that that's about the most detail we're going to get out in terms of why that change happened.
And Seth, even with that follow-up, we're locked in for this year. It wouldn't have any effect until next year. Is that,
No,
am I understanding correctly?
it's locked in, and that is the rate for the life of the byway.
We get the 16 million and 3% on that rather than 22 million plus 3%.
Right, right. If they find out these anomalies were anomalies, they get them fixed. Anything next year, not including the byway, something else comes on board, that will be.
I think he was pretty convinced they're not anomalies.
The best way to describe it is we think that right now they probably have the real market value of the mobile home parks correct. 5 years ago, they were very undervalued. I think that was the issue, is that for a number of years, they just weren't calculating the value of what those properties brought in. And especially when the one on Sandy sold in 2020, we kind of looked at that sale price and looked at the actual real market value of those parcels. And this year was the first year that the real market value actually matched what it sold. When you compare that to what it was 2 years before, it basically sold for twice what the county said the real market value was. So the error is not necessarily in getting here. It's that 4 or 5 years ago, those were just very undervalued properties.
Okay.
Is, I guess, the best way to sum up what we heard.
And you know what this really highlights, from Seth's presentation a couple meetings ago around the House bill to have a set change property ratio rate, because you can see what this can do from any given year and the difficulties that provides. This is quite a good story to tell in terms of state legislature and why the change property ratio is a problem. It's also a problem in terms of, if you think, development incentives and what it may take to get something over the finish line, and then seeing, its real market value at 45 or $50 million taxed at, a third or less than that. That's a problem. And it's always going to be a declining ratio where it actually doesn't make sense to encourage new development because you're going essentially backwards.
Yeah, the public benefits up to 25% of the value of the tax value of the project, right? So, it's only a 10% difference.
So it's, we're going to be okay from the urban renewal standpoint, a bit tighter for the next couple of years than we thought we were, but we'll be okay in the long term. And then also it's one of those great kind of case stories that work well at the legislative level to start making some meaningful change.
It also was really impactful when you look at the real market value of those property versus the taxes paid. I think that those are, especially since all of the structures on the mobile home parks are taxed as personal property at 100% versus a brand new apartment complex. Who's paying more based on the real market value? It's, the mobile home parks are paying almost I don't want to say close to 100%, but 70, 80%.
As far as the taxes are concerned, I mean, that's just undeveloped land.
Well, and that was,
It shouldn't even be classified. as
we were
multifamily.
really kind of trying to, how are you doing this when, for example, I'll just say like a Costco, for example, can be very successful as a business. So the business itself has a value separate from, the buildings it may have. Versus they were saying, well, yeah, manufactured home parks are a hot commodity for investment firms right now. They're driving up the price because of that business model. And apparently it's very difficult to decouple the business model money making from essentially just dirt. Because the parks generally don't own much other than the streets and infrastructure.
Well, and they don't make any income other than lot rent. So it would seem that it would be pretty easy to decouple it. This is how much I collected in lot rent.
We actually brought that up and they say, well, no, it's just the math. Because it's worth what someone's
It is
willing to
just the
pay
math.
for it.
They're just not seemingly willing to do it.
And again, kind of our smaller size with the higher number of manufactured home parks and, a large new property is just kind of say a perfect storm. I mean, I even asked the question, Joel G, had there been legislation in place that didn't make manufactured home parks quite as attractive for an investment firm and the values kind of stayed flat, would this have been as low as it was for the change property ratio? And they said no. But, if there was going to be changes, in a couple of years that then drive back down, values for manufactured home parks, byway's still on what it's on. It doesn't.
Yeah. So that was some bad news, at least for our renewal agency. And we wanted to keep you guys up to date on that we're continuing to monitor that and try and make sure that we're getting all of the increment that we can for projects that will benefit the community. I also included an article about business income tax. There were some changes the county made in conjunction with Portland and Metro in order to align with how the state, and really this just affects large companies that provide services and that essentially medium to large size companies that were providing services and headquartered in Multnomah County. All of that income was counted as being generated in Multnomah County, whereas if your headquarters was in Salem and you were doing business in Multnomah County, you didn't pay that tax. This basically changed the methodology. So it's where the money's earned, not necessarily where the location is for service industries. All that to say, it's probably revenue neutral, but that was a change that the county made to the underlying BIT ordinance. And we wanted to include that.
Probably revenue neutral or?
Yes, the state did this change. State did this change 4 or 5 years ago, and they haven't really seen any increase or decrease they can point to because of this. It was roughly revenue neutral. And then I highlighted some work the staff's been doing. We have a new utility assistance fund application that we put online. And that was based off of incorporating some of the questions that we had been asking for the PDX CARES and the ARPA programs. We had still had our old form, which was just fairly basic. So we added the ability to collect income levels, household size, in term also adults and children, and then any federal programs that they were also registered in, so that then we could continue to collect that data and report back to you for our own utility assistance as we gathered that. And that was work that Chelsea, our utility billing clerk, did. And then Chelsea and Caroline are working on our revamp, which should launch sometime this week or next on our rental landing page for this facility that kind of talks about the different layouts, some of the nice glossy photos that the architect took, as well as different plans and kind of a way to really kind of highlight our facility and what you can get, because before it was just a text page with a form. So, and with that, once that's done, we want to push that on social media so that we can see if we can generate some more interest this upcoming fiscal year and getting more people in here. So wanted to highlight that work by finance staff as well as Caroline. And then budget committee. I had we did a couple budget committee meetings last year. We wanted to kind of see if you guys were interested in having them meet again outside of the April meeting, and what we were kind of putting together as what those meetings would look like. We were thinking in February. taking the change staffing allocation based on our reorg and kind of running them through the details of how we allocated staff to different service areas since we changed the positions, have them review that, as well as a recap of the 5-year financial forecast that you guys are going to get as part of your council retreat. We wanted to brief them on that. So that set the context for the budget committee meeting. We probably will be proposing a supplemental budget this year based on the things that John's broke so far.
Besides the step.
Yeah, so since he's not here. And so we were thinking of maybe having, you know, some of the feedback from last year on the budget process was to have some more review on that. And so we thought that we could propose the supplemental budget to the budget committee and have them look at it before it actually came to council. And that would work with the timeline that we have for the February meeting. And then we might have a March meeting that goes over if we have the GFOA comments back on our initial budget award submission from last year, as well as updating the performance metrics. So we're thinking of maybe a meeting in February and then one in March and then the April proposed session. So 2 additional budget committee meetings if we can twist enough arms to get people to come and have some city hall after dark time with their favorite finance director.
All right. So I'll stop you there if that's okay. I think that we should just give Seth a thumbs up if we agree with the new meeting schedule. And if it's problematic for council that has a lot more experience than our public members, then you know, maybe we just say that we'll invite the public members and council can be there if they're available. Right? Thumbs up on that. Okay. And now we are at 8:23. 8:15 is the point in time where we're supposed to actually take a vote on whether or not it's okay to go past 8:30. We do still have the city manager's report. And then in the mayor and council comments, I have a proposal for you to spend a little bit of our council discretionary funds. And so it's a little bit out of character, but I'd move that we agree to go a little bit past the 8:30 stop point on tonight's meeting. And I'd ask for a second on that.
I will second that, but under the condition that if members aren't able to stay later, and 2 of us are right now not in the greatest shape, they can be excused.
Sure. So a motion and a second. All those in favor?
I'm good with 8:40.
All right. So 8:40 it is. Okay. So next up. So
Mayor,
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. I have to pick up my son. I'll try to hang in there as long as I can.
Okay. So
You know, I'm not even going to move seats. I'll just present from right here because from those at home, it doesn't really matter. I'll keep this brief. Again, we have Las Posadas this Friday, 6 p.m. at the Wood Village Baptist Church. So, you know, encourage people to attend that if you're well enough and feeling up to it. And again, outdoor event, but the weather looks cold but dry. So it should be a great event there. We have the menorah lighting the following Monday at 5:30 right here in our plaza. And both organizations did put in for our Wood Village Community Event Grant, and we did administratively grant those. We realized when we discussed this with council never really formalized who approves it, and given the timelines and you know what the asks were, it was very reasonable, and we'll go over that at a future meeting. We were awarded a capstone project from USC to kind of update our fire service needs. So we're going to basically look at that 2012 PSU study and update it. So that's a free service for us. Students are paying a lot to do it. So and then my last little piece is you've probably seen a lot of graffiti around, and while we're doing everything we can to remove it, report it, etc., I just kind of wanted to get the take, since we have a newsletter coming out, if we want to proffer a reward for the identification and arrest of whomever may be doing this. And I think if you just want to give a thumbs up or down on proffering a reward, we will. Not going to guarantee it's going to resolve anything, but it might just, again, it's that proof that we're putting our money where our mouth is.
Well,
Yes.
We got 4 thumbs up.
Okay, and
Okay.
any questions on the APP or anything else around town? I am done.
Okay, all right. So we all know who Cultivate Initiatives is. They have negotiated with different donors, 2 different grant matches. $15,000 for any, match up to $15,000 for anything given by January 1st. And then they have a $275,000 match for the next year. We have $4,500 left in our council discretionary funds. We're halfway through the year. I thought it might be nice to make $1,000 donation to Cultivate Initiatives before January the 1st, because it'll be turned into 2,000. They
I'm
and,
good.
and they get a lot of credit for the amount of garbage that is being picked up in the area. Because Council Craddock said tons, and Cultivate Initiatives is too.
I'm good with that.
Move to approve.
All right. Everybody's got the thumbs up. So $1,000 to Cultivate Initiatives. All right. Anybody else? Jeff Condit?
Well, I could go into the history of home rule in Oregon. It would take me about an hour and 20 minutes. But I won't tonight since everybody's tired. And
Yeah, well, yeah, that's right. Yeah, and we all got to go pick up Counselor Men's kid. So
Yeah. Well, happy holidays to everybody. Stay healthy.
Happy holidays.
happy holidays, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
We're adjourned.